Hello there, Lunar Squadron, and welcome back to the channel. When it comes to Star Wars Outlaws up to this point, we spent pretty much the entire time talking about intra-atmospheric gameplay features, things such as the size of the open world, planet maps, Ks, customization options, gunplay, all things like that. But what we really haven't had the opportunity to do is talk about the other side of the coin, and that is, of course, space gameplay, combat, traversal, customization, all things space. So what we have done is we have sat down and we have compiled a ton of information about space gameplay in Star Wars Outlaws from various sources such as interviews over the past few months, behind the scenes stuff, all kinds of different sources. And so what we're going to do is we are going to break it all down and just have one nice clean location for all the things we know about space gameplay in Star Wars Outlaws, and we might even share some of our own personal expectations for the space gameplay in this game at the end of this video. But before we do all that, we actually have some pretty exciting information to share.
That's right, Nick, we do. Thanks to Ubisoft, we have 2 copies of Skull and Bones. The premium edition of this game on PlayStation 5 will be giving away 2 codes to 2 lucky winners. All you have to do is leave a comment down below letting us all know what you are most excited about for space gameplay in Star Wars Outlaws, and we will pick 2 lucky winners. And of course, as always, make sure that you're subscribed to the channel for all things Star Wars Outlaws. Nick, ready to get into this discussion?
Yes, definitely am.
All right, let's do this, guys.
Alright guys, so if you're like us, you have probably a lot of questions and thoughts about how space is going to work in Star Wars Outlaws. So what we've done is we've compiled all of this information and we've broken it down into various subcategories such as space traversal, and that is actually the first place that I want to start because I believe this is a great baseline to jump into this discussion. So Andreas, why don't we start with just how is space traversal going to work in this game?
Yeah, that's definitely one of the most important things that we want to talk about is how are you going to be traversing space in this game? And for one, we've seen kind of how this works in the gameplay, but we've also had game director Julian Gerighty fill in the blanks for us and let us know where this dev team was at when they were designing this ground-to-space system. And what he had to say in the behind-the-scenes trailer for the gameplay demonstration is, quote, "One of the things that was very precious to us is having this seamless experience of going on foot to your speeder, to your spaceship, out of the atmosphere, and into space." And Nick, at first, from this quote, it seemed to us that there would be this fully free-flowing and seamless model of ground to space, but then Julian Gerighty had an interview with Edge where he kind of dialed it back a little bit and explained how this ground-to-space experience, as seamless as it looks, is a little bit on the rails, right?
Yeah, he sure did. It wasn't committal enough to say that, like, hey, it is for sure not this seamless, like, you can control your ship out of the atmosphere into space, but I think a lot of us just kind of assumed based on the way he answered this question that that is like a sort of hidden loading screen. And then he adds this quote where he says, you know, in our past games, we didn't have vehicles. So in wrapping our heads around the different gameplay possibilities, we've had to embrace the limitations and constraints of, and of course, that he's referring to each type of vehicle. And then additionally, it's added in this Edge interview that it's not going to be like No Man's Sky where you can just land anywhere you want on a planet. If you guys have played No Man's Sky, you literally can land wherever the hell you want. And that's one of the unique things about that game. He talks about how there will be preset landing and takeoff locations, and he mentions that flying freely above the planet was something that we chose not to do. So you're not going to be able to just fly around Toshara intra-atmosphere and explore around. That's not something you're going to be able to do. You're going to have to do that on foot or on your speeder. And it says that it's something that they chose not to do because it was going to take us a huge amount of effort for what they say is very little payoff. Andres, I think that is a very interesting quote, that they feel that that sort of gameplay feature would be a lot of effort and there just wouldn't be the results for that effort when it comes to that, because I feel like that is something that people would like to experience. So it's just interesting to see where their headspace is when it comes to that kind of system.
Yeah, and I mean, a lot of people have criticized particularly Starfield recently for not having a seamless ground-to-space and space-to-ground system, and I think a lot of people were critical of that game in particular because, of course, they were comparing it to No Man's Sky, where you had that complete freedom, but also because of how many loading screens there were in between going from space to ground, where it didn't seem seamless. And at the very least, I think from what we've seen of Outlaws, it is at the very least going to look seamless, even though there will be some limitations where you can only go from ground to a set landing location and from a set takeoff location to space. I still think that it looks seamless enough to where there won't be those complaints. And also we have a dev team that has made that clear to us now. We know what to expect. So I think that should help temper expectations. And I think the next thing that I want to talk about is what space is actually going to be like when you are in space. Is it just empty, or is there actually something going on there? And Gerighty has also chimed into this, saying one of the things that's important for us is that every planet that you will visit in this adventure has a distinct profile, not just a very bespoke story, but also wildlife, ecosystem, situations that really radically change from location to location. And space is just another part of that. So we're trying to develop a distinct profile for every single orbital region. And Nick, personally, from just looking at the gameplay so far, I think that they've done a good job of this. You can see that the space outside of Toshara looks distinctly different from the space on the other end of that hyperspeed jump that we get. So I think they have done a good job of drawing a environmental difference between different areas of space and different local regions in space. But one thing I'm wondering is, what can you actually do in those spaces? Are there things to do, or does it just look different?
Yeah, I'm really happy you brought up the actual gameplay itself, because that is exactly where my head went to. Is, you know, Toshara had all of this shipwreckage and kind of a darker orangish tone to it. It looked very different. And then when you come out of hyperspace on the other side in Akiva local space, it looks completely different. And I'm really excited to see, you know, what Tatooine local space ends up looking like, and what Kijimi looks like, and all of these other locations that we're going to visit in this game. You can tell that they took a really strong effort towards making each thing look unique, and I'm really excited for that, because I think one of the things that really held Lego Star Wars The Skywalker Saga back was just how similar everything ended up looking, especially in the space gameplay. Like, local space just ended up feeling like the same experience over and over again. And when it comes to that, one of the big things that's going to help alleviate that potential problem is, like you said, Andres, what can we do in space? So we actually have learned a lot from these interviews and these behind the scenes stuff over the last few months about what we're going to be able to do in space in this game. One of the big things we're going to be able to do is we are going to be able to trade and smuggle. In the Edge interview, Gerighty explains that the limited portion around each planet exists because we're trying to create not only reasons for you to trade and smuggle and fight against pirates and fight against the Empire, we also will be able to do things such as taking down large vessels. In the behind the scenes thing, he says, and space is a dangerous place, but it's a place full of opportunities too. So we'll be using it for combat, both on an intimate dogfighting level, an epic level with bigger ships, but also for discovery, exploration, and special surprises. So at that point, Andreas, I think a lot of us were being like, oh, will we only be able to take down these larger ships in special levels, like a level dedicated to it? But it sounds like it might actually be a little bit more than that.
Yeah, it will, because in a later interview with IGN, Gerighty went on to say that you were able to jump in your ship, go into the atmosphere, explore the orbit, get into firefights, from intimate dogfights to taking down much, much larger vessels. He said that we can take down larger vessels, and of course, I think we are all immediately thinking of the Star Destroyer that was shown during the gameplay demonstration, or in that cinematic trailer. At the forefront of that cinematic trailer, we saw a Star Destroyer. And so I personally am wondering, are those the sorts of larger vessels that he is suggesting that we will be able to take down in this game? If so, that would be awesome. I really hope that we're able to do something like that. And another point that I want to talk about is later on in the gameplay demonstration, where we see Kay sneaking around what appears to be an Imperial hangar, and you can see outside there's clearly space there. I'm wondering, is that a hangar that you had to interact with in free-flowing seamless space, and then you can fly into that hangar and go around and explore that hangar? That's the sort of interaction that I'm wanting out of this game. I think if this game delivers on that front, I would be incredibly impressed.
Yeah, I would too, and that's one of the big questions I had from that sequence is that like a dedicated level in the game, or will we be able to like board these capital ships like Lego Star Wars The Skywalker Saga was able to accomplish, where you would have these random encounters with capital ships and you could board them and take them down? Will we be able to do that in this game? That is perhaps one of my biggest questions about the space gameplay for Star Wars Outlaws, and kind of like, I guess, a baseline expectation that I would like to have for this game is that we can do cool and fun stuff like that. But we've also learned that one other thing that we really can do in this game is just space combat. In that IGN interview, he says, in terms of space, our singular objective there was to focus on the accessibility of being able to fly and shoot at the same time. So it was real thrilling, very fast, very accessible, so that anyone could pick up and play and have a good time. So it's not a simulation after all. And then in that Edge interview, it talks about how Kay's ship, the Trailblazer, has a limited supply of missiles, lasers, and a nitrous-style speed boost and a hyperdrive. And of course, we get to see some of this smaller scale space combat in that gameplay walkthrough when Kay is being chased out of Toshara with the wanted system, which is a whole nother conversation to have. But you see, once she enters the local space of Toshara, there are all of these TIE fighters after her, and you have to bob and weave through the wreckage and take them down, and it looks like a good time, but that is more on the smaller scale of what we'll be able to do in this game when it comes to space. At least that's what it sounds like.
Yeah, and just from looking into this quote here from Julian Gerighty about how this game isn't going to have a simulation type combat style in the ships, it's going to be more of an accessible format. I think that is really painting the level of depth that I would expect from this game. I don't think this game is going to be to the level of depth of something like a Squadrons. I think it's going to be more like flying a ship in something like Battlefront 2, where it's a bit more of a simplified and accessible approach for people, but still fun, fast, and exhilarating. And also, Nick, when you bring up that Edge interview quote about Kay's ship having things like missiles, lasers, nitrous-style speed boosts, and a hyperdrive, I personally am wondering, are you going to be able to upgrade these points? And this is actually something that was touched on in an IGN interview where Brian Altano asked Julian Gerighty, saying, in terms of your ship, your speeder, stuff like that, even down to your blaster, your pistol, are these things that you will be able to upgrade or amend in any meaningful ways? And Julian Gerighty responds saying, yeah, they are all designed with very light RPG elements to them. So it's part of the toolkit of progression in general is to give you those goals and be able to upgrade your speeder. It's going to allow you to explore wider areas. Being able to upgrade your blaster will allow you to have different functions on it. There's a lot of things that we're allowing you to personalize and to customize to your will as well. So of course, Nick, he didn't overtly confirm that you will be able to upgrade things like your hyperdrive, your lasers, missiles, parts of your ship, like your hull, your health. I don't know if he's confirmed that to date, but it does seem like there will be very light RPG elements to this game. And so that makes me wonder if we are going to be able to give the Trailblazer just those little bits and upgrades that can give you a sense of progression in this game. But also, I've heard a lot of people asking, are we going to be able to swap out the Trailblazer for a whole new ship? And to that, I just don't think that's possible, particularly given Naveed Kavari, the narrative director's comments on the ship, where he said that this ship has an importance to Kay. He said, the Trailblazer is an EML 850 light freighter from the Republic era, but to Kay, this is home. And if you're a scoundrel traveling throughout the galaxy, the first thing you need is a ship. And for Kay, there's none better than the Trailblazer. It seems to me that they have plans in mind for the Trailblazer, and this isn't going to be a game where you can fully uproot that ship and customize every aspect of it.
Yeah, you know, the more and more we talk about and learn about the space gameplay in this game, it really starts to feel like This game is going to land in the middle between what we had experienced in Lego Star Wars: The Skywalker Saga, where you had that local space and the activities were very limited, and honestly they got a little repetitive, but it was still kind of open where you could fly around. And the other end of the spectrum, at least from recent game, is Starfield, where you could completely change the compartments of your ships and build your own ship, and you could completely fly within one whole star system from planet to planet. It sounds like we're kind of getting a middle ground where it's not entirely open, but it's not as limited as Lego Star Wars: The Skywalker Saga. It sounds like there's going to be more stuff to do, and it's going to be a little more unique, but we're not going to be able to just change the ship out because the ship has importance to the narrative of this game. And, you know, when it comes to my personal expectations for the space gameplay in this game, Andreas, as we close this conversation out, is really what I'm looking for from Star Wars Outlaws in space is I just want it to be engaging. I would like it to be tense or intense. I want there to be consequences for your actions, especially if you're an outlaw. Like, it would be cool if there was, you know, a way for them to scan for contrabands, which would be pulled from Starfield. I just want it to be engaging and fun, and I don't want it to get repetitive. I don't want it to be a type of system where, you know, you get up into the local space of these planets, and we saw from the gameplay, it looks like when you're being chased by things such as TIE fighters, if they hit you, it kind of interrupts your hyperdrive and it prevents you from jumping. I just hope that it doesn't become one of those things where it's just annoying and you're trying to get away from it to get to the next objective you have to complete on another planet, and you're just like, oh man, here we go, back in space, have to get through this sequence, oh, this is annoying. Like, I want it to be engaging. I want it to be something that I want to do. I want there to be, like, you know, a Star Destroyer or these larger vessels, and it's a challenge to take them down, and I want to take them down, and there's reasons to smuggle goods up in space and trade. Like, I just hope it's engaging and exciting, and it just doesn't get super repetitive. I hope there's a lot of cool uniqueness from planet to planet in their local space.
For me, I'm really looking for an environment where you get distracted and you might go off the beaten path because the game presents unique and exciting opportunities for you. I think that's the biggest compliment that I can give to open world games in the past, is where the game presents this very interesting story, but then it also offers these other things that you can get lost in. And I want that in space for this game. I want the game to give me a roadmap in the story where, say, I have to fly between Tashara and Akiva or Tatooine, and I'm flying from point A to point B, but then I see a Star Destroyer, or I'm caught in a contraband check because I'm smuggling something and I may have forgotten that I had contraband on board. I want those sorts of things to happen, and I want this game to reward that sort of risk in space. And just from listening to them talk about space in this game, they've said that it is a dangerous place, that it also has a high reward if you can pull stuff off in space, and that is making me think that they're going in the right direction. But one thing's for sure, Nick, I can't wait to learn more about space and the ship combat systems in this game.
Yeah, me too. I honestly just can't wait to learn more about this game in general, especially since it's supposedly coming out within the next handful of months. Like, we should be getting more information soon, and everything we've heard and read and seen up to this point sounds absolutely fantastic. So guys, let us know your thoughts down below on the space gameplay in Star Wars Outlaws, what your expectations are for it, what would you like to see from this game when it comes to space, and again, don't forget to enter that giveaway for a copy of the premium edition of Skull and Bones on the PlayStation 5 if you are interested in getting your hands on that. We are, again, giving away 2 copies, so definitely get involved in that if you're interested. Anyway, guys, that is going to do it for us for this one. Thank you all so much for watching, and as always, we will see you all next time.